Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Marc, a photography degree student, and today I'm here for a proposed English project about doing a tutorial. I think it's convenient to share it here in YouTube because it can contribute to help someone on the topic that I've selected, which is the photographic composition. And what photographic composition really means. It says the composition is an art, the way that photographs are framed and placed. But from my point of view, the photographic composition is a series of concepts to consider when we are creating an image. Because the photos, in my opinion, are not taken. We are creating something that didn't exist previously. And this is where the subject of this video comes in. What is the subject? I want you to have a greater ability when you are creating, using logical thinking to help knowing necessary concepts, becoming you better to turn the into reality in multiple effective forms. With practice, it will become instinctive. It doesn't matter what level you are. There's always room for improvement. But you may be thinking, how can I do that? I'll try to explain some concepts related to the photography composition, concepts that have helped me, including some of them that I have learned through this course. The video will be structured as follows. Firstly, I will comment the number of elements that make up an image. Later, the same is based on the proportions, on what they are and the possibilities they give to us. But finally, I would like to talk a little bit about lighting, which is very important when you are creating, and colors, because each one is related to an emotion. First of all, I want to explain three things. A photographer named Rebecca Tieverson created the expression the decisive instant, and this is based on the fact that photography is an art that captures the moment summary of a whole situation or a whole state of mind. You could agree with this because I believe that not everything created is art. But I believe that every moment has its decisive instant, and this can be photographed or not. With this, I want to refer the fact that there is an option of leaving the camera apart if we really want to appreciate the decisive situation and keep it in our memory. There will be no photograph with a bottle like that feeling, but surely, without going out to take photographs, we will not have lived it. Then, the second aspect I would like to talk is the background. The background of an image is formed by one or more elements that fill our composition, but not all the elements in a composition attract the viewer in the same way. This structure is the next one. Firstly, you will find people. Secondly, the animals. After that, abstract icons or forms. And finally, plants and objects. Why do I say this? It's necessary to emphasize these first because it allows me to introduce the following topics and remain relevant at the end of the video. Once I've said this, let's start with the composition. The first one, composition with a single main element. They are the simplest, but at the same time the most effective and powerful. Although we must be careful because simple compositions could become vulgar or even lacking strength. After this, there are the compositions of two main elements. In these compositions, the elements manifest a relationship, even creating a theme meaning or history by how they relate. The most common examples may be symmetry, asymmetry, similarity, difference, balance, imbalance. Then we have composition of three or more main elements, which is where I want to dig a little bit deeper. Besides establishing a meaning between them, they can create abstract form that enhance your image and directs the viewer gaze to where you want. These abstract forms, which may also be in the previous type of composition, will form another element of your composition. The examples are the predominant lines, whether real or imaginary. If they predominate horizontally, the composition will give a sense of tranquility and stability. If they do it vertically, the sensation will be of height and majesty. But if they do it diagonally, they will transmit imbalance and instability. Although this is never an absolute truth, and there are always exceptions. It's also necessary to talk about the vanishing points, which are places in our composition where real or imaginary lines meet and guide the viewer where to look, turning the place into a point of interest. Then we will find the size of the elements, because not occupying more space means that they have more weight. This is one of the concepts that can generate a relief in the image by giving it another meaning. The relationship between the elements can also generate symmetry, asymmetry, dominant and dominated, balance, imbalance. Movement is also important because it allows us to highlight the element we want by differentiating it from the rest. Once the first section is finished, the second section consists of proportions, which are aspect ratios between height and width. The sensors of our cameras and mobiles are built in this proportion, but it's even more important because it will allow me to talk about two composition rules, and that's going to be a resource to continue organizing the content of your image. Additionally, it can help you if you want to print your photo, deciding correctly the size of the paper you are going to print. Starting with 3:2 ratio, the sensor which come from the 55mm films rotate the film to take more advantage of its surface are called full frame and measures 24 by 36mm. The size of paper that can help us to print are 15 by 10, 50 by 20, 45 by 30, 60 by 40. The second one is 4:3 ratio. The most used in the sense of compact cameras, micro four thirds, and smartphones. The 1.33 ratio makes the sensor square. If we are thinking about turning our image to paper, the 16 by 12, 20 by 15, 24 by 18, 28 by 21, 14 by 30 will be a good size. Also, we will find the 5:4 proportion of medium format cameras with 48 by 36mm sensor. In this case, the paper size shown on the screen will help us. As you can see, it has been to maintain the aspect ratio depending on the proportion that your sensor uses. But surely you will be thinking that something is being missing, and this is 16:9 proportion, not utilized on sensor. It's mostly used on television screens. In movie theaters, usually are 21:9. With your phones or cameras, you can access it, but this happens because it cuts the image through software. Having commented that, it's time to talk about golden spiral and the rule of thirds, the two rules of composition. The golden spiral is born from the Fibonacci series numbers and is constructed as follows. It is important because it is present in many elements of nature, creating a pleasant feeling of familiarity. From this golden spiral, we can obtain the rule of thirds, useful to place. It divides our image into 9 parts, making the intersection a greater interest points to place what we want. Depending on who is addressed, we must consider where we place our element, because for countries or languages come from Latin, it will surprise more in the lower right point, but for Semitic cultures, such as Arabic or Hebrew, the lower left point will be the most surprising. After that, we can talk about lighting and knowing how to play with it. Our possibilities are multiplying. The first of the 4 aspects to deal with is the light hardness. It could be soft, making the transition between light and shadow smooth, or it could be hard, generating the opposite effect, favoring the texture and getting more attention of an element respect the others. The light direction is the next point to treat, and it's usually direct from top to bottom because sunlight is the most common light. Sunrises and sunsets are the exception, but what can serve us from here is changing the direction of light radically from normal. It adds more tension to our composition, even making it one more striking image. The light tone is also useful because it has an emotional weight. It is measured in Kelvin degrees, and as a result, we can find warm lights linked to kindness, pleasantness, relaxing, cold lights linked to tension, restlessness. Finally, unreal atmospheres by lights with dominant greenish or magenta. Now I can go deeper into what the contrast is and close this third section. The contrast is nothing more than the difference in light intensity between the most illuminated area and the least. A higher contrast tends to give more attention to an element than a small contrast, but the small contrast tends to be softer with details. It must clarify, we shouldn't confuse it with texture. Texture refers to the characteristic of a surface, being soft, rude, polished, coarse, even, uneven, opaque, serene. Finally, we can talk about colors. The color has three properties, but I think it will be more useful to show the meanings, symbolism, or general associations of the color with complementary information on the screen. I must say this information is inspired by A. Moles and L. Janisevsky theory, but depending the culture this can change, even by minimally varying the color tone. It's difficult to prove this using science, so it doesn't have to be an absolute truth. While on the screen you will have the general outline of the video, it's with the absolute truth where I want to start my conclusions. Everything explained in this video is a part of what I've learned while I'm studying photography. Everyone should find what works and what doesn't. Each person has their own style. The absolute truth doesn't exist because by breaking with many of the aspects mentioned, unforgettable photographs can be achieved. What you are finding in this video today, maybe it's redefined tomorrow. We are human. The important thing is to keep learning and try to grow. I hope to see you again. Thank you very much.